I'm Amanda Marlin, and I'm the Executive Director with EOS Eco-Energy. And I'm going to talk a bit this morning about our action plans to reduce emissions in our communities here in Tantramar.
It was nice to have the opportunity to visit Sackville in the fall and do a community workshop with you. I thought there was some great engagement around community energy potential there.
Yeah, we had a really good diverse group show up that day and had really good feedback from that workshop, which also helped us with our plan. Sackville. So I'll get to that in a little bit.
Amanda, would you be okay with, because we are a small group on the call today, and although this is recorded and put online, I can unmute the participants so that they can participate. They can remute themselves using the panel in the audio. If anybody has an issue, then I can just remute them. And this allows maybe for some questions or some discussion as you go forward.
Yeah, sure. That's great.
Okay, so I've unmuted the participants. Welcome. Thanks for participating. If you wish to be muted, you can do so in the audio panel. Okay. All right, it's all yours.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so over the next about 20 minutes or so, I'll share with the listeners this morning some background on EOS in case you're not familiar with us, and then some background on our communities in our corner of New Brunswick, so Dorchester, Port Elgin, and Sackville. And then I'll give an overview of the Partners for Climate Protection and what it is and what's involved, and then get into some details around the emission inventories in our communities here, their reduction targets, and details from their action plans. And then I'll talk a little bit about how we were able to make climate action relevant in our small towns and get participation in the planning process. And then I want to end with an update around some of the implementation that our communities have already been doing and how EOS has been helping with that. And then the next steps for EOS over the coming year. And then a little box at the bottom there, if you're not familiar with EOS, the word is a Greek word which means dawn or new beginning. So that was chosen by our original board members back in 2004, which is when EOS was incorporated as a nonprofit. We're based here in Sackville, and we serve the Tantramar region of southeast New Brunswick. And EOS is dedicated to energy and climate change issues, so that includes sustainable development, community planning, promoting renewable energy, energy conservation, raising awareness around climate change issues and adaptation. And we do this through research, action, planning, outreach, and education. So our area of New Brunswick here, we're right on the Chignecto Isthmus. We border Nova Scotia, and our communities include Port Elgin, which is the green, Sackville, and Dorchester, and then also Memramcook. Now, Memramcook isn't a member yet of the Partners for Climate Protection program, so that's why they're not included in this presentation this morning. So the community of Dorchester has a population of just over 1,000 people, and it's home to the Dorchester Penitentiary. They've been a member of this PCP program since 2001. Sackville has a population over 5,500, that's not including the students who attend Mount Allison, and they've been a member since 2003. And then finally we have Port Elgin, our smallest community, just over 400 at last count. It is shrinking though, and it's an aging population, as many of ours in New Brunswick are. It's also home to Atlantic Windows, a pretty big manufacturer, and it's been a member of the program since 2009. So the Partners for Climate Protection program, it's a national program. It's part of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. They're the ones that administer it here. And it's also part of an international program to reduce emissions at the local level. And it includes 5 steps or 5 milestones to achieve that. So you start with a baseline emissions inventory. In our communities, this was done back in 2011. And then you work with your community to come up with an agreed upon emission reduction target. And then you create an action plan, and then of course you implement it, you do what you set out to, and then you monitor along the way to see how close you are at achieving your target. The program is also split into two compartments. So there's municipal component and a community component. So within the municipal plan and the emissions inventory, it looks at the municipal buildings, the street lighting, the municipal vehicle fleet, municipal buildings, and water treatment. And then on the community side, it looks at residential emissions, emissions coming from commercial and institutions, so that would be the schools, the churches, and that sort of thing. Also from industry, waste, and transportation. So in New Brunswick, there's 33 communities that are part of the program so far, and according to the PCP website that I looked at on Friday for the latest update, we only have Bathurst and Fredericton that have completed all 5 milestones. And then next up is communities here in Tantramar that have completed milestone 3, which is that action plan. There's a few other communities around the province too. I think Hampton and Bukchush and a few others that are at the milestone stage as well, or milestone 3 stage. So at the beginning, you do a baseline emissions inventory, and as I mentioned, these were done back in 2011 by EOS staff. Now, this was done before I joined EOS, so if anyone has specific questions about how these were done, I can find the answers for you, but I wasn't involved. But the PCP program does provide users with all the calculations and equations and instructions for how to calculate emissions in your community. So in Dorchester, emissions from municipal operations equaled about 185 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. The community came out at just over 6,400 metric tons. In Port Elgin, smaller community, 99 metric tons for their municipal operations, and just over 6,000 for the community. In Sackville, municipal operations were over 1,800 metric tons, in the community over or nearly at 75,000 metric tons. EOS received funding from the New Brunswick Environmental Trust Fund to perform these inventories. So then it took a couple of years, but we got back into the PCP program locally here, and so during 2013-2014, EOS worked with each of the communities to select reduction targets. We also had New Brunswick Environmental Trust Fund funding to do this work. So we had we used different community engagement opportunities, workshops, information booths, social media, and that sort of thing, community meetings to get a sense of how the community felt about different reduction targets. And so in the end, the municipal councils in each community passed motions to commit to the reduction targets. So in Dorchester, the council there said that they would reduce their municipal emissions by 20% and community emissions by 6% below 2011 levels in 10 years from then, so by 2021. So the 20% for municipal operations and 6% for community emissions, that's what the PCP program recommends. You don't have to do that, but that's what they recommend. So that's what Dorchester decided to follow. The same with Port Elgin. In Sackville, though, the community decided to do something a little bit different. Municipal staff felt that in recent years, just before 2011, they had already made a number of emission reductions. There's a brand new energy efficient town hall here in the town, and a number of other activities that they had done, energy audits and that sort of thing, and retrofits. So they felt another 20% below 2011 levels was going to be difficult. They wanted to do 10%, but they also wanted the rest of the community to step up and do more than just 6%. So we're looking at 10% from the community as well. So those motions were passed. Then we moved on to creating an action plan. So last year, I worked with Port Elgin and Dorchester on their action plans, and this past year I have staff at the office here working on an action plan for Sackville, and it's actually going to council tonight. So hopefully everything goes well there and they approve the action plan for Sackville. But for each community, we followed a really similar methodology to develop these action plans. We started with background research. We contacted the PCP program and asked them for plans that they recommended from communities of a similar size. And then we started with municipal engagement in each community. So we wanted to meet first with staff and council and brainstorm their plans and ideas, and so that they show municipal leadership for their communities. And then we moved on to community engagement with a whole variety of different things. We had booths at community events, fairs and craft shows. We went where there were lots of people congregating already to get their ideas and feedback and input into what they would like to see their communities do to reduce emissions. We also had articles in local papers and newsletters. We had stories on our local radio stations. We made use of social media and email, and we welcomed phone calls in the office, talked to specific people. We also had community workshops, and in particular, we had NB Power come and present about how to save energy at home, and that's the picture here on the slide. We had Rob Robichaud, and he's our home energy or residential energy advisor with NB Power for this corner of the province. And so in the picture here, he's presenting in Port Elgin. And at each event, we had food to help entice folks to come, and everyone who participated really enjoyed those presentations and you know, had a good time learning how they could save energy and save money, and they really wanted more people to be able to hear that information. So we plan to do more of those workshops in our area. And then we also invited key people that we wanted at the workshop and to have their input into the plan, so we invited them personally. We also felt that because we're looking at the future of our communities, we wanted to have youth engagement into the action plans, and so we visited all the students in grades 5 to 8 in Port Elgin, Sackville, Dorchester, and to make it fun for them, we had some hands-on experiments and experiential learning around solar energy, wind energy, renewables, climate change issues. So the picture here shows some students at Dorchester School and experimenting with the wind turbine that we have that we bring into classes. And so kids can experiment with the angles of the blades and the number of blades and see how many volts they can generate out of that wind turbine. And then they can power different gadgets like buzzers and lights and things. We have the same with solar panels. So we also asked the students to then write letters to their mayor and councils with their ideas to reduce emissions in their communities. And so on the screen here too is an example of one of the letters. So they had lots of great ideas. This one talks about wanting more windmills and outdoor play areas in their community. So anyway, lots of great ideas from the students. So the Dorchester Action Plan, the result of all that community engagement there and municipal engagement, their action plan for municipal actions includes things like building upgrades. So buildings was their largest proportion of emissions, came from their buildings, so they want to focus on that. But also they're looking at purchasing new fuel-efficient tractor, fire truck. Those things were coming up for replacement, so they want to choose more fuel-efficient vehicles. LED street lighting, this was being completed by NB Power, so that's going to greatly reduce emissions in the community. And then they were also looking at water and sewer upgrades. For the rest of the community in Dorchester, the action plan revolves around a lot of public education and increasing awareness. They also want to promote solar energy, a residential waste reduction. When their plan was put together, they weren't part of the blue-green garbage separation program, but they were looking at implementing that, which they have since that time. They also wanted to implement an anti-idling policy. They wanted to have some more rain barrel workshops around water conservation. They wanted to promote buying local and starting a farmer's market, and they also wanted to start some community rewards and to recognize the people who are doing a lot to save energy in their community. In Port Elgin, there's some similar things. They also had their LED street lighting upgraded by NB Power. They wanted to increase natural landscapes on municipal land. So they wanted to have more sort of wild spaces. They don't want to have to cut as much grass. They also want to do some upgrades to their water and sewer system. This was where their largest proportion of emissions came from. And then they're also looking at increasing efficiencies of some of their municipal fleet, their vehicles, and some efficiency upgrades to municipal buildings. They're looking at possibly buying a new municipal building because their current one's quite old. And then from the community, again, education, awareness, composting program, promoting solar energy. We heard a lot about solar energy and desires for more solar across our region here. Energy reduction at the school, and a community garden as well in Port Elgin. Now for Sackville, community engagement was ongoing from last March until this past October. And as Eddie mentioned at the beginning here, we had a workshop which he facilitated for us around smart energy communities and how you design a smart energy community. So there's a picture here of the group we had, one of the groups we had that day, looking at a map of Sackville and looking at energy resources and possibilities and locations in that. So that was a really great way of looking at the community and thinking about energy here locally. And then, as I mentioned, the action plan is pending approval by Town Council, and they are meeting tonight, and then they'll have a vote next week. So the action plans themselves are easy to read, easy to follow, clear tables with details around each individual activity, who the lead and partners are, the resources needed, the timeline, and the estimated emission reduction for each activity. At least as best we could estimate the emission reduction. So milestone 3, the action plan, it's easy to read, use, and implement for folks. And these plans are available on the EOS website as well as the PCP website. You can just go in there under members, choose New Brunswick, and find our communities. So in terms of making climate action relevant here, we knew that we needed to make the issues personal for people. They have to see the benefits for themselves. And then EOS focused, so in order to do that, EOS focused first on the fact that being part of this action plan will help people save money in the long run and energy. And then also, of course, we made the connections to how this will benefit the environment and the climate. And so this wasn't too hard to do in maritime communities because, of course, we've already witnessed climate impacts. Our communities have witnessed and experienced more intense storms happening more often. We're seeing a month's worth of rain in one day. The picture in the background here is from Sackville. This road floods more and more often lately, and people are stranded and can't get to town. So flooding is impacting businesses, homes, our transportation routes. We're also seeing higher storm surges, so that's impacted Port Elgin for sure lately. And then other things too, we've got ticks moving in that we didn't have years ago. So the climate certainly is impacting all sorts of different things, and so that's how we're able to motivate people to take some actions on their own in terms of reducing emissions. People also want to know that there are some solutions and some things they can do. So the PCP action plans provide that. So then on to implementation. It's been a really fun year here at EOS, especially in terms of our solar energy work. So we've done a couple projects this year. One, we offered solar energy grants from EOS, and we offered these to local area nonprofits, schools, and municipalities. And we had funding from the Mount Allison Students' Union and their Green Investment Fund. That's a great fund. They actually take some money from the student fees every year and provide that to local groups who will reduce carbon emissions, specifically in the greater Sackville area. So we've been lucky to receive that funding in the past, and so this past year we used it to offer 2 solar energy grants, and our grant committee selected Salem Elementary School as one recipient, and then Johnson's Mills Shorebird Interpretation Center that's just outside Dorchester as the other. So Salem School, that's the first picture here. They put 6 panels on the roof of their outdoor education building to make it essentially off-grid and totally powered by the sun. And it's a great spot. It's helping to teach students about solar energy from quite an early age. And they're also going to be installing some neat things to help kids understand how solar energy works, like solar-powered fountains and different things. Salem Elementary School is constantly working on their outdoor education space. They've got wetlands back there, pirate ship, different outdoor learning areas, and sitting areas, and gardens, and great spaces. So we're really happy to help support them. And then at Johnson's Mills in their Shorebird Interpreter Center, they put up 4 panels. That allows them to be totally powered by the sun as well. They're also net metered because they're not open through the winter, and so when they're generating extra power, that power is going back into the grid, which is excellent. And they get, I think it was about 2,000 or more visitors every year to come and see the shorebirds there at the head of the Bay of Fundy, and so they're really excited to be able to help promote and educate around solar energy to their visitors as well. So that was our solar energy grants. Our other project that we did this past summer and fall was a solar panel bulk purchase and installation. So we partnered with Fundy Solar here in our area, who gave us 12% off the price of panels, so that reduced the price down to just $1 a watt. And he would give us this price if we were able to get 60 panels installed. So we just surpassed that target with 61 panels purchased by 4 different homeowners. And so that equals 15 kilowatts of solar power. So that was really exciting, worked really well. So we now have 71 more panels in our area than we had last year. Altogether. So then also continuing with solar energy, we have done some workshops this past year, some education around it. We heard from our communities that they wanted to see more focus and awareness around solar energy. So we did a workshop on how you get started with solar energy back in the summer, and then this past fall we also did a workshop around the possibility of starting a solar co-op here in Tantramar, and EOS is looking into that. We want to take part in the New Brunswick government's LORES program when it comes out. So that's around being able to sell small-scale renewable energy generation back to NB Power. So we had great turnout at both of these workshops. There's definitely a lot of interest in our area, which we're really glad to see. Then we've also done some work around water, and EOS hosted a couple of do-it-yourself rain barrel workshops. So you had one in Dorchester and one in Port Elgin this past summer. So a really nice workshop where participants can come and learn how to make their own rain barrel, much less expensive than spending $100 at Canadian Tire or whatnot. And then you get some skills and capacity learning about the importance of water conservation, and participants also learned other energy saving tips and other sustainable gardening tips. This workshop was facilitated by Eco-Container Company of Dorchester, and they go around the Maritimes collecting used barrels, food-grade barrels, that we're able to then turn into all sorts of different designs, and you can have your own custom-made rain barrel. Great way to save some energy and some water. So then the communities themselves have also gone ahead and implemented a number of things that EOS has not been a part of, which is excellent. So Dorchester, they have started their farmers market this past summer, and they're going to continue this summer. So and continue to grow it. They did implement their blue-green garbage separation system. In Port Elgin, a community garden was planted at PEDVAC. That's their community volunteer center and food bank, so very exciting. And then Sackville, well, we will see once they approve their plan, and but we know there's great things coming up for Sackville. As the communities complete each of the milestones, each of the steps in the PCP program, they get a puzzle piece, and so our communities now have 3 puzzle pieces, and that's another way to just display that you're part of the program and the achievements that you're making. So in terms of EOS and our next steps, we will certainly be continuing to help our communities implement their action plans. And over the next fiscal year, we hope to be promoting energy efficiency with a program that will involve some draft proofing work parties and some direct installs of energy saving items like LED lights, high efficiency shower heads, and insulating pipe wrap for your hot water pipes. We also plan to give priority for these things to folks in our area with lower incomes. It's all dependent on funding, and we're waiting to hear back, but if it all goes ahead, then we'll be partnering with NB Power and also Energreen Builders here locally to complete that project. We are also going to continue to explore community-based solar co-op, and then, as always, we will have a variety of workshops, educational events, school visits, climate change week. We just finished our 4th annual climate change week here last week, and had a great array of workshops and presentations and community meals and things to help promote climate change adaptation and how we can save energy, reduce emissions, fight climate change. And then in terms of monitoring progress, we will conduct emissions inventories in the next few years to see where emissions are at, how close the communities are to reaching their targets. They may have actually surpassed them, especially in Port Elgin. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Manda. That was a great overview of the work you've been doing, and also quite encouraging to see the number of municipalities you've engaged in the region and some of the initiatives you've been able to put forward. I'm excited to hear what happens with your solar program this year, knowing that the LORIS program is likely to come out for the municipal nonprofit sector. So I was going to open the lines to see if there was any questions, but in fact, attendees have the control over their mute buttons. I'd like to know if there's anybody on the line who would like to ask a question or make some comments to Amanda. I have a question perhaps to kick things off and or to close out. So Amanda, obviously, you know, you've had some tremendous community engagement and support within the, I imagine, councils of each of the municipalities to move forward. I'd like to know if you can sort of summarize for me, you know, if you can remember the workshop we did together and engaged about 15 or 20 participants from the community. What I remember most is the diversity of folks that were there, from a counselor to an engineer from the university, students and professors, folks involved with green energy and other groups and interested citizens. So I thought that was interesting. I was wondering if, you know, that exercise served a purpose, and what would it be? What do you think was the biggest impact it may have had? And have you identified any new projects as a result?
Yeah, well, no, yeah, that workshop was a great one. We certainly had a diverse group that day. It was really neat and a surprise. You never know who's going to show up necessarily. And we don't always get as diverse a group as that one, but that was great because, yeah, we had folks from Energreen Builders there, Mount Allison University, Daybreak, which is a center for adults with certain challenges. So yeah, it was really nice. Newcomers to Sackville, that was awesome. Yeah. And we got great workshop reviews that day too. They really learned a lot, everyone. So, and appreciated the workshop. We have certainly taken the maps that were created that day, and you know, they fed into the action plan for Sackville. We're really excited to see the focus on solar, wind. There was also micro hydro mentioned that day, so that might be something to look into. EOS hasn't really done much with micro hydro energy yet. But yeah, as you mentioned, the LORIS program, so we're waiting for that to come out to get more details. But we do have a community little group that came out of the workshop that we held back in the fall, who are working together, you know, all the background information and steps and exploration around how to start a solar co-op and a community-owned
Sure.
energy co-op. So we're still working through that.
So this could actually be replicated for other areas. In
Definitely.
And I'm interested to know what's the model here. When you install the solar, is it who's the owner and operator of that solar, and what's the average payback period for an installation?
For a solar co-op, yeah, those are things we're still looking into.
Like in respect to the three municipalities you've worked with, what was the average payback period for the installations, and who remains the owner operator? Is it the property owner or EOS, or how does that work?
You mean in terms of the solar bulk purchases we've done so far, or the solar grants,
Yeah, so you've done
or
the bulk purchases and then the installations of that. Who actually
yeah,
is owning and operating and essentially servicing, if there's financing
yeah.
involved?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, it's not EOS. So for the school and for Johnson's Mills, they received our grant money. They may have had some other money as well. Anyway, so they own the panels and are responsible for the maintenance and upkeep and that sort of thing. And there's particular paybacks, I'm not sure. And then the homeowners, they certainly own their own panels, and I don't know necessarily whether they were financing them. EOS didn't deal with any of the money. We just collected the interested folks and gave their contact information to Fundy Solar, and then Fundy Solar took it from there. So we weren't involved in any of those specifics, which
Okay.
made it easier for us.
But you did the engagement and the identification of those opportunities and working with the
Yeah.
community. So yeah, okay,
Yeah.
excellent. That's really interesting. And can folks get a hold of you, or do you have a website where some of this is available? Just before we close out, or are there any further questions for Amanda? All right. Oh, I see a question from one of our participants. So let me just check it. What was the total budget for the installation of the 61 panels?
Oh, the total budget. Uh, oh man, I don't have numbers in front of me. I know that the two, I'm more familiar with the school and with Johnson's Mills. They were both around $7,000. So that was 6 panels at the school, was just about $7,000. At Johnson's Mills, they only had 4 panels, but they also had to pay for an upgraded electrical panel, so that added to their cost and some electrical work. But that gives you an idea for those ones. And then the residential, I have to go back and look at the list from Woody Woody with Fundy Solar to see how much it cost in the end. But I can find that out. If you want to send me an email, my email address is on the screen there, eos@nb.aibn.com, and our website is there as well.
Okay, well,
And our phone number.
I wish you guys the best of success with your programs this year, and look forward to hearing more. Of course, we have further Quest webinars and meetings throughout the year. Have a chance to kind of get a sense how well the project is moving in terms of amount of kilowatt hours generated and efficiencies gained and greenhouse gas emissions reduced.